Hey everybody, I have read your evidence-based practice in the novice nurse papers today and have provided you feedback. Always know that you're going to find feedback on your written work, the body of your paper. You're going to often see it as little post-it notes. On my side of the world, they're little blue notes. You can always download your paper that has the annotated notes on it as well if you want to get them all together. It is so important that you take the time to read that feedback that's been provided to you and make plans for how you're going to use that feedback and integrate it into your new way of doing things as you move forward in the course. This was very often the first papers of any course can be pretty challenging to grade. You all made my job so much easier. Your attention to detail, it was impressive. Your APA is it's not perfect, but it is really, really good. So many of you have demonstrated a lot of intentional effort in looking, excuse me, looking at the small details and figuring out exactly how, where all the commas go and what the spacing looks like and all the required elements. Your intentional practice of that will make this easier as you move forward and use APA throughout your academic career, not just in this course. I just realized that I closed the door so it would be quiet in here when I did this video and realized that I closed it on Gracie. So my current teaching assistant that is behind me, that's Gracie, the baby beagle. So if she starts to bark, I will excuse her from the room, but right now she's being a good girl, so we'll leave her alone. Okay. Kind of the takeaways for week one was I think your classmate, I think it was Olivia, in the conclusion of her paper, she encapsulated the idea from week one really well. Olivia wrote, without thinking, how can we, parentheses, nurses, make this better for the patient? And why is this not getting better? Patient care will never be improved. It is this problem-solving approach that makes evidence-based practice so successful in today's healthcare system. And Olivia is exactly correct. What she's describing is the spirit of inquiry. It's the little tickle in the back of our brain that says, this doesn't make sense. I wonder if there's a better way to do this. I wonder if there's a more cost-effective way to do this. I wonder if there's a more efficient way to do this. That's the juices that get our curious mind going, and that really is the crux of evidence-based practice, of really looking at better ways to do things that improve patient outcomes. So I appreciate Olivia's perspective in putting that in there. And many of you touched on those key ideas of the importance of always looking for a way to improve and how we use that evidence to be the underpinning for our practice. So I appreciate that insight. From an APA standpoint, I just want to touch on a few things. This paper, many of you used first person. I, me, myself. Informal papers, I don't have a problem with that. Pure APA does not want you to use first person. Pure APA is going to want you to use the writer or the writers or the author of this paper. Know that as you move forward into your evidence-based project papers that you're going to not be using I and we. You're going to be using the researcher or the writers of this paper. So move away from that first person. If you used it in this paper, I see this as more of a reflection paper, and I don't get hung up on when I intentionally say, what do you think you're going to do? It kind of sets you up to not be able to use the first person. Just know that that's not pure APA, and that when you do your evidence-based project paper, you're going to not use first person to describe the behaviors or the activities that you and your teammate are doing. As a reminder, we talked about this in class. If you are choosing to use formatting software for your APA, no problem. I do not mind that at all, but you've got to know more than your formatter. You've got to go back in and clean it up. And when I'm looking at this, I can tell when someone has used formatting software, because the errors are consistent throughout the types of references. Be sure that you are consistently going into the Purdue OWL site or using your handy dandy APA book. Here is a copy of it. Notice that mine has little flags all over it. If you saw the inside of it, it's all like highlighted and stuff. It is a using tool for me. If you don't have the APA manual, that's okay. Make sure you're using Purdue OWL or the sample papers that are provided to you. Just again, know more than your formatting software. And if you don't know, then you need to spend some time digging and getting the research. When I'm grading your work, whether it's this work or future work, I will not likely correct all of your errors. What I will do is I will highlight them or put a note that says, you need to go back in and look at the capitalization of this, or you're missing these few elements. I am not going to correct it for you because that's how you're going to learn. You're going to hear or read what I have said, and you're going to say, Dr. Hudgens wants me to go look at this because it's a problem. And you're going to go back into a reference source and you're going to say, oh, that's what the woman is talking about. If it's a persistent issue, I may give you some hints, but I really want you to take ownership of your learning process. If you have done a really, really good job with your APA and you have clearly made lots of effort and you've got one or two weird little things, I'm probably going to correct it because you've already tried really hard. If you've made minimal effort, and we do minimal effort sometimes for a variety of reasons. Sometimes I've run out of time. Sometimes I'm tired. I don't have the energy. Sometimes it's just, this isn't something that's a priority for me right now. So when you put together your final product, it's not as put together as it should be. So when I see papers like that, I'm going to give you feedback that's going to be more directional of where you can find information, so that when you do have time to put your best effort forward, you have the resources and the direction to do that. The other thing to remember is nobody's perfect, and I am going to miss things. I have read 30 papers today. When I went back in to go back and review and finalize all the grades, I found 3 other things on 3 different papers that I missed. I read every paper twice. When I do the finalization of grades, I do a quick other scan, but I'm going to miss things. So if I miss, let's say you had a small error on your title page, and then a week from now I go, hey, this shouldn't be this way. And you're thinking, okay, well, why didn't she say that last week? The truth is, I probably missed it. I try really hard to catch all the mistakes, but know that if there's ever a variation in the feedback you're getting from me, always ask me. Don't ever assume that I know what I'm doing, because that may not be solid guessing. I may have made a mistake, and it is perfectly okay with me for you to say, Dr. Hudgens, I'm concerned about this. Could you explain this more to me? And I'm happy to go back in and first double check my own work, but also be able to provide better feedback for you if you're struggling. That said, if you're given a word count, or a page limit, I'm going to encourage you, if you are exceeding that page limit or you are under that page limit, I want you to ask yourself, how thoroughly and accurately am I asking or answering the question being asked? If you have been given 2 pages to do something and you come up with a page, you've probably not dug deep enough to the topic. So you need to go back in and flesh things out. If you've been given 2 pages and you've written 4, it likely means that you have included things in your paper that are completely unnecessary. Doesn't mean it isn't interesting. Doesn't mean that that it isn't well supported. It doesn't mean that it doesn't tie. It just means that it's not necessary. So you want to take those chunks of material that are not part of the required elements, and you need to remove them. Concise, directed writing is really challenging. I tend to like adjectives and adverbs. I love things to be pretty. So scientific writing, which is what APA kind of calls us to do, is so not easy, because it takes away our flowery language. It takes away our compound sentences. It takes away our adjectives and adverbs. It takes away our opinion words. I highly suggest. I am very interested. I have an expert opinion. All the things that sound really good. Think about this as a news article. Just the facts, ma'am. The who, what, where, when, how. The logistics only. Don't give me your opinion. Don't give me your ideas. So know that as you move towards paper length and guide, too little, flesh it out. Too much, dial it back. If you have excessively gone over, you may hear very clearly from me, hey, this is a problem, and you're going to lose points for that. So a little bit over, a little bit under, not a big deal. Just be mindful of that. Okay, so that's just the general gist of logistics from last week, the general feedback that I had from APA. Your Spark video from this morning gave you an overview of your discussion board that's due. Remember, your primary thread is always due on Wednesday. Your peer reply is always due on Sunday. The Belmont report is an interesting report. I am not asking you to read the whole thing. unless you want to. I did post it. But there's a summary of the Belmont report that I want you to read, and then I want you to pick one of the cases that you're being given the option to look at and spend some time thinking about how the Belmont report, the initiatives in the Belmont report, would have protected patients in that case study. And I'm going to encourage you to, I think there's 6. Pick one that's interesting to you. Pick one that's close to the patient population that you want to work with, or a population you're interested in. These are heartbreaking cases that really did happen, and they happened here in the United States. So I want you to pick one, be aware of it, and then connect it to the Belmont report. Discussion boards should not be mini papers. You need to use good grammar. The only thing APA that needs to be on there is if you use in-text citations, which you should, because you should be supporting your ideas, and your reference list. I'm really interested in good ideas and good ideas that are supported. So be sure that you first read the rubric and understand the expectations of that. And I'm not going to go through all that with you. Just know what they are, and be timely in your discussion boards. Okay. The last thing that you're going to do is you're going to start your group work this week. You're going to do step 1, which is the writing of the background and your, sorry, I'm fumbling here. Okay. So the writing of your background and your PICO question. Make sure I wasn't getting ahead of myself. Yep. Okay. So your instructions are that you have 1 to 2 pages to give a background of your nurse sensitive indicator, and that's the one that you chose, and that you are going to give as much detail about the background as possible. And remember, background information should be supported. You should have references. All your references should be the last 5 years. You are going to talk with your peer group, your project group, and you're going to talk about what research question you want. And again, in the Spark video this morning, I gave you the guidance on how to break this down into your population, your intervention, your control, and your outcome, and maybe a time frame. I will tell you that the easiest way to approach this is to agree on a very specific population, and then to look at the control for the problem. So what's the thing that's always or commonly done or routine practice? What's the current thing that's routinely done? That's your control. And then talk in your group about potential ideas for your innovative idea or your intervention, your I. I think doing the population and the control are easier first, and then talking about, you guys should have pulled articles this week, or will be pulling articles to look at kind of what's out there. What could we do a deeper dive on? As you move forward, you may tweak your PICO a little bit depending on, as you go through your annotated bibliography. If you pull 15 articles and you find that your intervention that you thought you were going to find stuff on just isn't right, we may back up and clean up your intervention and make it different. What I want now is your best guess of what you're going to find to be something relevant that is a good comparison to your control. And then, of course, your outcome. What do you hope to accomplish by making this, implementing this intervention into practice? So that paper should be pretty concise. Don't get long-winded in it. The idea with this is to really give you a chance to fly the test balloon of your PICO question. I'm going to go through, I haven't looked at your peer contracts yet, but I'm going to go through those and print those out. Let me know if there are any questions or concerns about that. I think everything that was on my list, I think I have hit on. Again, my office hours, Tuesday, Greenville, 12:30 to 3, Thursday, Spartanburg, 12:30 to 3. I am happy to meet with anybody. You don't have to make an appointment if you don't want to. If you know you're coming, give me a heads up so I won't be wandering around and I won't miss you. I feel like that's it. It's late. I've been reading papers since very early this morning, so I'm going to go snuggle a puppy and read a book that does not include evidence-based practice. Know that I'm here. If you have questions or concerns, touch base. Let me know how you are as you go through the project this week. If you have questions, let me know. I'll look forward to reading your part 1 and your discussion boards next week. Y'all take care.